very private about my body.
Security cameras rolling where patients undressed. Now an investigation has led to a formal allegation of misconduct against the Toronto plastic surgeon. The College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario has scheduled a disciplinary hearing for Dr. Martin Jugenberg in July. That's after CBC Marketplace first reported the story in December. Since then, several women have spoken with CBC. Magda Garba-Selassie first did the story at Marketplace. She joins us now. Magda, you spoke to a patient.
Yeah, so there were actually several women, about half a dozen women that we spoke with, but I talked to a woman, the only one that was willing to be interviewed on camera, and what she said is, before our story, she had no idea there was a camera in the examination room.
I felt pretty violated and very, very angry.
We'll call her Grace. Interested in getting breast implants, she says she went to see Dr. Martin Jugenberg at his Toronto clinic last year for a consultation. Then she saw the CBC story about security cameras in his examination room.
How would you feel if you went to a new doctor? You put your trust in them because they're a doctor. And then months later you find out they videotaped you with your top off. How would you feel?
As research into a story on breast implants, we visited Dr. Jugenberg's clinic. Our producer went in for a consultation, looked up, and noticed a camera in the corner of the room and asked staff about it.
I have a question. Is there a camera out there?
That's for the doctor's record.
I don't really feel comfortable being unclothed in front of the camera.
We reached out to Dr. Jugenberg, who told CBC the cameras were there for security purposes.
It's for our protection and also for your protection.
He also addressed the issue through social media. Following our story, the College of Physicians and Surgeons launched an investigation. So did Privacy Commissioner Brian Beamish. That continues. In November, he told us, among the concerns,
there's always the fear of outside hackers looking at it.
Dr. Jugenberg has since made some changes to his clinic. In a statement emailed to us, he said, "We are working with regulators to ensure our clinic is in compliance with all privacy and security standards. In the interim, we ensured signage is clearly visible regarding the use of security cameras and removed any security cameras from treatment and consultation rooms." The college has since made formal allegations of misconduct related to the cameras. The hearing is scheduled for July. Meanwhile, Grace says now every time she's at a doctor's office, she's checking for cameras.
But now, because of my experience, that's something I'm always going to be looking out for. And there will always be that little bit of trust that's not there anymore with doctors.
So we reached out to the doctor again to get his reaction to this formal allegation being filed, as well as a response to what Grace said and other patients. We did not get a response in time for our broadcast, Dwight.
Thank you, Magda.
You're welcome.
My kids had no prior records with this, no record, and never done anything wrong.
Nothing you do can bring my son back to life, but at the end of the day, they're still sitting behind bars.
A Toronto mother expressing relief today after learning 3 men have been convicted in the shooting death of her son. But the mother of 2 of the men now facing long prison sentences for the murder broke down outside the court, proclaiming their innocence. Chris Glover has more on today's verdicts in the shooting death of Jarrell Hagley.
3 men covered their faces as they approached a pizza near Weston and Lawrence in October 2016. Then inside, gunfire rang out, killing 17-year-old Jarrell Hagley. But as they ran to the getaway car, surveillance footage captured one of their faces, 26-year-old Winston Poyser.
He put his life on the risk for my son to bring justice, and I'm very grateful.
Hagley's mother, Delma, thanked Poyser today for testifying against the 2 men he ran from the scene with and the getaway driver. And today, a jury found those 3, Mohammed Ali Noor and twin brothers Lanil and Shaquille Shaw, guilty of first-degree murder.
It's not something to rejoice over, but it somewhat gave me that peace of mind that to know justice was given to the right people.
Originally, Poyser was charged with murder, too. That was downgraded to accessory after the fact, and he went on to become the Crown's star witness.
My boys are innocent. They're so innocent. There was no fingerprint.
Today, the mother of the Shaw twins accused Poyser of a cover-up. She says he lied about her sons, scared of retribution from the real killers.
Winston Poyser, why you lie about children? And the real killers are out there. Oh my God!
Even though Poyser was high and drunk at the time of the shooting, police say he should be trusted.
I've seen many witnesses testify, and no witness is perfect. But I believe Winston Poyser was telling the truth. This wasn't just a case of a single witness coming forward and pointing the finger.
Still, scrutiny over Poyser's testimony is likely not over. All three men say they will appeal their guilty verdicts. And while Hagley's mother wants the court case behind her, she appreciates the desperation of another mother.
I still look at it as a mother seeing 3 young men going to sit behind bars for such a long time, you know. Nothing you do can bring my son back to life.
A stunning ability to look past her own pain, to see the 3 other lives lost to a lifelong prison sentence. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
A 3-alarm fire ripped through the historic hotel in the Junction early this morning. The blaze broke out shortly after 3 a.m. on Dundas Street, east of Keele. The building is unoccupied now, but it once housed the Peacock Hotel. Several nearby residents were forced out of their homes in the middle of the night.
There's like flames coming like from the side of the building, and there's like smoke coming out, and my eyes started to like burn and stuff.
Yeah, the police just came and banged the door for us. Get up, fire, fire. So that's why we jumped.
I had to leave as quickly as possible. I was sleeping at the time, and I took what I could and ran.
Firefighters were able to get the fire under control, but it wasn't easy. A collapsed wall at the rear entrance that had fallen last year made it difficult for crews to access that area. Okay, we are live at Jurassic Park. Well, technically, the line to get into Jurassic Park. So a few hours until tip-off of Game 5 in Milwaukee. These fans are ready to roar for their city. All right, we will take you back to Jurassic Park for a second look, but first, it's Colette. Almost the #1 Raptor fan in the newsroom. I would say I'm #1, but you're actually, no, Colette's #1.
We rival each other. I'd say we're both great fans. And we have a lot of fans, by the way, in that newsroom. You know, it's a nice night to be down there. We're all excited about what's going to happen with Game 5. But just have a look at what we're talking about. In terms of the temperature, it's slightly cooler towards downtown than we're seeing at the airport. So by the time we get towards 7 o'clock, probably low 20s. We've had just some incredible numbers today, and I'm going to get into that. Those winds, though, still strong from the west. Now, they'll still be strong at 9, but not as 20 to 30 kilometers an hour, coming down to about 18 and 15 degrees, so still mid-teens even as we get towards 11 o'clock. These are the current temperatures, though, and not only is it 24 degrees at the moment, but we have a little tiny bit of a humidex, and I'm happy to show that. So, okay, it feels like 25, Markham like 27. At one point today, it felt like nearly 30 degrees. The sustained winds aren't too bad. They're still coming from the southwest, turning more towards the west. It's these gusts that are stronger, and so we're seeing some of the gusts. Even had one at about 77 kilometers an hour there at Pearson being clocked in. Those, as I say, will ease over the next couple of hours. Some of the associated showers and a few thunderstorms rolling off with that cold front passing through, and that's why it is a cold front. The winds turn towards the northwest, and some slightly cooler air does move in for Friday. Overnight tonight, 12 degrees, and then tomorrow afternoon, sunshine and 20 degrees, Dwight.
Sunshine and 20?
Uh-huh.
I'm liking it. Thank you,
Yeah, but then I
Colette.
got to show you the weekend. That's coming up.
It's
not bad.
Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
So, the Raptors are in Milwaukee to play the Bucks in Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals tonight. They came back strong on Tuesday to tie up the series 2-2. Greg Ross is not back in Bucks territory. He's here. He's decided to stay close to home in Jurassic Park. Greg, bruised and battered and sore, but this team is feeling this long season, but somehow they're holding up, buddy.
You know what? Kawhi Leonard said it after Game 4. This is the NBA playoffs, and players play hurt, and the Raptors certainly have a pretty good handful of them that are playing hurt in this series with the Bucks right now. Kawhi Leonard being one of them. He's obviously dealing with something to do with his leg because he's been limping around the court quite a bit throughout the entire series. But we do know that Pascal Siakam has some hamstring issues that he's dealing with, but he seems to be playing through it. And then there's Kyle Lowry. Let's not forget about him. He's got a sprained left thumb. He's had it taped up for just about every game in this series. And when he's away from the court, we see him walking around the arena wearing a brace or a cast or whatever it is. But I can tell you what it looks like. It looks like a big, giant blue oven mitt. And he says it hurts a lot.
It hurts. It's pretty bad. Honestly, it's pretty bad. I still got a lot to give. I still got a lot more to give. My thumb being hurt is, it is what it is. But other than that, my body feels great. My mind feels strong. So that's an important thing.
It's a lot of work. It's both teams got to win 2 times to go to finals. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. It's hard, and it's the playoffs, and the intensity is even, it's doubled. And I think the team, the stronger team will win. So.
Got a great scene happening here right now. The truck over here on the lakeshore, getting the crowd fired up over here by honking his horn, and they love it. They're eating it up over here. That's the energy that's in the city right now. People are excited. They're not hurting right now like some of the Raptors players, but they're hoping to avoid heartache. And you guys say it's going to be the Raptors in 6? That's
Raps in 6. Saturday, it's over. It's over.
They got to win a big one on the road tonight, though.
Yeah, we got it. We got confidence coming into this game. After this game in home on Saturday, we should be able to complete the series.
So they're looking to do it in 6 games, but the tall task for the Raptors tonight, Dwight, is to win on the road. They haven't done it in this series, and there's no doubt that the Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee is a very difficult place for visiting teams to play in. The Raptors know that all too well after games 1 and 2. They have to find a way to win there, though, if they're going to win this series, and tonight would be a perfect time to do it. And like these fans are saying, if they can win that game on the road tonight, game 5, they'll have a chance to come home on Saturday in game 6 and wrap this series up in the friendly confines of Scotiabank Arena, Dwight.
Oh, it would be so great for this town to experience that. Thank you, Greg. All the rain this spring has really put a damper on outdoor sports in our city. Many leagues and clubs say they've had to cancel hundreds of games in the last month, and they worry there could be more. Alan Nanowski has the details.
This Pee Wee baseball game's off to a good start. After last week's,
it got rained out at about 3 o'clock.
Many of the city's baseball leagues say they've been up against the weather this year.
It's very hard to find fields nowadays, especially ones that are in good enough condition to play on.
That's because even when the skies are clear, the ground has absorbed so much rain,
It sounds like, squeezing a wet marshmallow.
Rolston Miller manages hundreds of soccer and baseball teams for Sport and Social Club.
So far, this month to date, we put in over 1,200 hours fielding emails, phone calls, rescheduling games, trying to get people active where we can.
Sure, Riverdale Park looks pristine, but it's one of 20 the city has deemed unsafe to play in. It has to completely dry before players can run in the outfield.
When you're dealing with natural grass facilities and fields, it's one game, even one bad period of 15 minutes that can not just wreck a field for a week, it could wreck it for the whole season. So this is why the city has to baby these facilities so much.
The city has about 550 baseball diamonds and fields, but it only posts closures for about a fifth of them. That means for the remaining majority, you're not going to know until you get there whether the field is dry enough and firm enough for you to play on.
It's really annoying. It makes it hard to get off to a good start in the season because you don't get a lot of playing time.
To help, the city is aerating high-use areas.
Basically punching holes in the turf. It allows air and water to move more freely through.
The ideal solution would be subsurface drainage.
There are some fields with drainage. Newer fields are, have higher standard that we construct with. But most of our fields are older.
So really, all sports teams can do is hope for warmer days and fewer clouds in the sky. Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Toronto.
From off limits to a space everyone can enjoy, I'm Talia Ricci, and coming up, I'll tell you about an idea city planners have to create a new park over an open subway trench between Eglinton and Davisville stations.
A woman experiencing cardiac arrest is less likely to be helped by bystanders than a man. That's one of the conclusions of a new study trying to understand why women are more likely to die from cardiac arrest. Vic Adopia explains.
It can happen anywhere at any time. For Melissa Dunley, it was at the dentist's office. In January, she collapsed on the office floor from cardiac arrest. Office staff moved quickly.
They noticed I wasn't breathing. I got out the AED machine and started CPR, which I was shocked 5 times in the office and 4 more in the ambulance.
Cardiac arrest occurs when the heart's electrical impulses are knocked out of rhythm and the heart stops beating. According to a Dutch study of nearly 6,000 men and women who had a cardiac arrest outside a hospital, bystanders tried to resuscitate 73% of men, but only 68% of women. 55% of men had enough heart rhythm present that they could be shocked with a defibrillator. Only 33% of women did. And most striking, while 20% of men had recovered enough to make it out of hospital, only 12% of women did.
So what we observed is that the lower rate of survival in women is in large part attributable to the fact that the shockable rhythm occurs less often in women.
10, 11, 12, 13.
For cardiac arrest, timing means survival. A person only has 5 to 10 minutes before there's lasting damage or death. While heart attack is the most common cause of cardiac arrest, genetic disorders or other conditions could also trigger it.
A woman is 5 times as likely to die of a heart attack than from breast cancer, for example.
This cardiologist says the Dutch study shows the need for more research into how women's hearts behave differently than men's. Women are more likely to flatline quicker, so they're less likely to survive than men.
So we like to refer to men having the sort of Hollywood heart attack where they clutch their chest and start to sweat and everybody knows they're having a heart attack. Women can have those symptoms, but they can also present with different symptoms that may be overlooked.
Fortunately for Melissa Dunley, her symptoms weren't, and that saved her life. Vic Adopia, CBC News, Toronto.
A North York woman is being honored today for her generous gift. Maria Scooty donated her home to the Canadian government as a thank you to this country. She wanted the house used to support young people in need.
On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3.
Today, officials unveiled a plaque honoring Maria. She immigrated from Italy and bequeathed the home near Jane and Wilson. It will house 4 young people at risk of homelessness. Renovations are being done by an organization that finds work for young people in the trades. One of them used to live on the streets.
I know what it's like, and I know how much dignity you lose when you don't have anything. So the fact that I'm able to give back to those people that I was a part of as myself, I couldn't be any more grateful.
The federal government says using individual homes to get people off the streets is one part of its overall housing strategy.
When you do it house by house, in particular with people that have experienced homelessness, their path to self-sufficiency is so much quicker and so much healthier. And so this is a model that I'd love to see replicated right across, not just Toronto, but right across the country.
Unfortunately, Maria Scooty won't get to see the finished product. She passed away after making this wonderful donation.
It's as close to what a painting looks like, would have looked like leaving Rembrandt's studio as we can imagine.
Don't drop it, gentlemen. Rembrandt is coming to the ROM after the break. We'll take you behind the scenes as the museum got 70 paintings ready for the public. Plus,
I'm Adrian Chung. The TTC is at the heart of how we get around the city, but when you use your Presto card, you can't actually see how much money is left on it. That is about to change. I'll explain why coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
This is it's a gem. It's, as I said, both quality and condition. I don't think you can get a better Rembrandt.
This painting and 69 others will soon make their debut at the ROM. It's all for the exhibit In the Age of Rembrandt, capturing the Dutch Golden Age. The collection shows off work from world-renowned artists like Rembrandt, Frans Hals, and Jan Steen. The exhibit will open to the public next Thursday. Now, what goes into getting an exhibit like that together? We're taking you behind the scenes at the ROM, showing you how some of the paintings are restored and prepared for their big debut. Take a look.
Hi, I'm Heidi Sobel. I'm the Senior Paintings Conservator at the Royal Ontario Museum. My job is to take paintings that are maybe not in the greatest of condition and bring them back to where the artist would have seen it. When paintings come into the collection, they often come from locations that may not be other museums. So we'll have things like furnace deposits from heating. We may also have just your average everyday dust and dirt. One of the major problems we've had historically is cigarette smoke deposits, and they end up making a painting look very yellowed and discolored. What I will begin to probably do is create a cleansing solution that's almost 100% water. I'm going to add very small proportion of a little bit of acid and a little bit of base. It's going to act like a little bit of a soap. We're going to let water do most of the work. And once water engages in that dirt and starts to roll up onto a cotton swab, the dirt will come right off. So we have to work very slowly because there are cases in which a painting may be sensitive and you may not know it until you've gotten to the green part, and then all of a sudden your chemistry is not going to be working in your favor and you could damage the painting. There have been times where I've made a mistake and had to step back, but that's where I learn. I have never learned more from my victories. I learn only from my defeats. And how am I going to solve this, and what chemistry do I have to do to back this off? You can see how this is like dead and flat looking. Now we get the sense of that curving around into the shadow. The lace highlights, like all of that is coming up forward now. I'm betting that this hand was moved because I'm seeing pentimenti. Pentimenti is a phenomenon that happens in paintings. The refractive indices of the paint on top and the paint below start to come together, so you end up seeing a ghosting appearance. There's also textural pentimenti, meaning you can see that there's an outline under there, but it's not in the place it should be. So all those are clues. The artist may have decided at some point to move the arm, move the head, move the baby. So all that's happened. The most exciting part of the job is frankly working on the ROM's collection because it is so broad. I can work on a Fayum mummy portrait in the morning from 100 AD, and then in the afternoon I can work on a contemporary Canadian painting in acrylic by living artists that I get to work with and learn about her techniques or his techniques in creating that work. And that's what's exciting about the ROM's fine art collection, is its breadth.
This week in Toronto in 1965, the new Ontario flag was flown outside the legislature for the first time. It's based on the Red Ensign, the original flag of Canada, in direct response to the change of the Canadian flag that year to what it is now. An unpopular decision for some, like then Ontario Premier John Robarts.
Today, in affirming our faith in a strong and united Canada, the people of Ontario are mindful that we too possess distinctive characteristics not to be ignored or submerged.
This week in 1971, Ontario Place opened to the public. 70,000 visitors were expected, but only a tenth of that actually showed up. Then Premier Bill Davis said he wasn't disappointed at the turnout.
Oh no, none at all. It's quite obvious that with some of the reports people were concerned about overcrowding and so on, the people will come. It's a tremendous place.
I'm Tashana Reed at Scotiabank Theatre, where the blue carpet has been rolled out, and that is for this film, Aladdin. You won't want to miss it. We'll have some of the stars from the movie coming up on CBC Toronto.
You can check it on Go, you can check it on the Up Express, but it's a lot harder to check your Presto card balance on the TTC. However, that may be about to change. Adrian Chung joins us live tonight from Union Station. Adrian, what's taken the TTC so long to get on board with this technology?
Well, you know, thousands of customers have been coming by these Presto card readers all evening, and they've always been able to check the balance on their cards, but that has never been the case for the TTC, to the annoyance of some riders, and it's an issue that the TTC is now taking another look at. At one time or another, we've all been like Jessica Chu, using the Presto card and realizing you're out of money.
All the time, yeah. Run out of money all the time by accident. And the machines on the streetcars don't even accept cards, so I can't even reload by myself.
That's because the Presto readers on the TTC can't show the card's balance. But on the GO train or the Up Express, which are run by Metrolinx, they've had the technology for almost a decade. How much you're spending and how much you have left. Now the TTC says it's thinking of changing its tune. Many riders say it's about time.
Sure, if it's right on the card, I can see it whenever I'd like. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Other countries around the world do that as well too, so it took us a while to get here. Hopefully we can catch up sooner than later.
When Presto was first rolling out on the TTC, they said that there were privacy and accessibility concerns, that if you were to show on the screen how much money was left, you also need some kind of audio for people who are visually impaired. So what changed for the TTC?
An item that customers do provide us with feedback on, that they would find it helpful to have this information available at the screen, and we're certainly always open to expanding and enhancing the customer experience for our customers.
Now, the TTC says they won't have to replace any kind of hardware. They just need a software update, and they're just still in the consultation phase right now. They don't have a hard deadline on when we'll see that rollout of the balance, but already they know that it could cost upwards of $2 million. Dwight, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Adrian. It is a Toronto neighborhood starved for green space, but there's a plan in the works to transform a section of subway track near Yonge and Eglinton into parkland. Talia Ricci has more now on the details and how likely it is to actually happen.
Imagine for a moment, amidst the rattling subway trains and operating cranes, a quiet rest in the park.
It's an interesting concept. Have the dollars to do it, it certainly adds to the landscape and the general feeling of the city.
City planners are looking into creating a new park in Midtown by decking over the open subway trench between Eglinton and Davisville stations. If the idea passes an ongoing feasibility study, the park will be a little more than half a kilometer long. Residents craving more greenery in their scenery are on board.
It's always nicer to look at a parkland than a train track, so I think it's a great idea. It sounds great anyway, in theory.
A lot of people have dogs, and they need the place to walk with their dogs.
Some planners say this could help solve one of Midtown's biggest problems, a lack of park space. The Yonge Eglinton neighborhood currently has less than half a football field per 1,000 people, which is the lowest in the city.
We would love to see this happen from the TTC's perspective, because A, it helps us secure the tracks and secure the subway, but B, it adds an element of a linear park to a neighborhood that desperately needs it.
But Robinson says this plan is still far from fruition.
You won't be seeing a report coming to Planning and Housing Committee, which I happen to sit on, or City Council in the near future, simply because there's too many questions.
Questions like what the province plans for the subway after announcing an impending takeover of the system late last year. So hold off on packing your picnic for a while, because things like cost and even the exact features of the park are still up in the air. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
A key moment today in reconciliation with Indigenous people and in Canadian history. The Prime Minister was in Saskatchewan to make right a historic wrong. During a ceremony filled with symbolism, Justin Trudeau apologized for the unfair treatment of an important Cree chief more than 130 years ago and exonerated him of treason. Bonnie Allen has more on the true legacy of Chief Poundmaker and the importance of what happened today.
A symbolic climb up a steep hill, the same path government forces took 134 years ago to ambush Chief Poundmaker and his people. Today, the Prime Minister comes in peace, armed with an apology and the exoneration of Chief Poundmaker.
On behalf of the Government of Canada, to confirm without reservation that Chief Poundmaker is fully exonerated of any crime or wrongdoing.
Redemption at last.
What happened today here, we will never forget.
In 1885, Canada was in the midst of its first and only civil war, the Northwest Rebellion, led by Louis Riel and his Métis supporters. But Chief Poundmaker, like most First Nations leaders, tried to stay out of it. After a military ambush at this site, Chief Poundmaker stopped his warriors from chasing after the retreating Canadian soldiers, likely stopping a massacre. But he wasn't celebrated as a hero. He was convicted of treason felony.
It was a real smear job.
Blair Stonechild co-authored a book that revealed the Canadian government had an ulterior motive to prosecute First Nations chiefs.
The government's agenda essentially was to gain control over Indigenous people. It had nothing to do with justice.
Poundmaker's incarceration and death soon after was followed by decades of government oppression and a legacy of distrust between non-Indigenous and Indigenous people.
You know, when people heal and forgive, it's after an apology.
Breaking that silence of the truths of the history of the Indigenous peoples of these lands.
Breaking the silence.
Breaking the silence, writing the history books.
This moment doesn't erase that, but it was embraced as a moment of truth and reconciliation. Bonnie Allen, CBC News, Poundmaker, Cree Nation, Saskatchewan.
I thought a princess could go anywhere.
Not this princess.
Do you trust me?
They're about to take us to a whole new world. Well, sort of anyway. Some of Disney's most iconic characters, Aladdin, Jasmine, and the Genie, are back, flying onto screens tomorrow for a new live-action version of the 90s classic film. Tashana Reed joins us now from Toronto's premiere of Aladdin. And she looks like she already has the star there with her. And we hear he's a Markham kid, Tashana.
That's how we do, Dwight. We rolled out the magic. I had one wish today. Mina Massoud, hometown legend here. He is Aladdin. Can you imagine that? Mina, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
How does it feel? I mean, you've been on a whirlwind tour promoting this film. Now you're at home to bring it to Canada. How does it feel?
It feels good to be finishing it off here. It's really special to me, and to get to spend it with Toronto, it's amazing.
I mean, Ryerson's just up the street. That's where you studied. That's where I studied. Ryerson, shout out. But, this is such a beloved character. Pulling Aladdin from the Disney vault, lots of people anticipating this role. How did you prepare for this character?
We had 6 weeks of prep before we started shooting, and we just dove right into all the rehearsals, and we continued to work and rehearse throughout the process. So we just put our hearts and souls into it, and we hope people like it.
For everyone that's going to be able to watch this film, finally it's in theaters, what can they expect from this story?
We've really delved into the relationships in this one. The relationship between Aladdin and Jasmine is deeper, it's more earned, and the relationship between him and the Genie as well. So we hope people get invested and have fun. It's a fun film. So at the end of the day, it's about leaving and learning something by yourself.
You talk about the Genie. I had a chance to see the film. I got to see this interaction, the big musical numbers, the action. Guy Ritchie directed this movie. But what was it like working with this cast? Naomi and you are stars. Will Smith as Genie. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's honestly, and I'm not just saying this, it's very rare that you put together a film like this and everyone gets along and really likes each other, and we just really all got along, and I think that made for a positive experience, and it makes for a positive viewing experience as well.
We talk about that positivity. One thing that we are seeing with this film is representation in a very different way. That's something that you've spoken about. It's very important to you. Tell us, what the hopes were with this film in terms of the world of Agrabah that was built.
You know, Agrabah is a fictional city, so we want to take advantage of that and represent as many cultures and ethnically diverse artists as possible. And Disney really did that, you know. I'm Canadian Egyptian, Naomi's from the UK, but she's Indian background, Marwan is Tunisian Dutch, so we're not representing only the Middle East, but Asia and Europe as well.
And, you know, I'm running out of time. I wish we could talk longer, but for you, I saw that you had your family flown out to LA for the big premiere. How proud are they of you at this moment?
Really proud. You know, it's been a long journey, and they were really worried at the beginning, but I think they're proud now and they're happy, so I'm happy.
Well, you know, it was so great to see you representing on screen. You were fantastic. I was a huge fan of the cartoon, so, you know, seeing it all come to life was quite remarkable. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And back to you guys in Toronto.
Let him know the ladies back here are swooning over him. Thank you, Tashana.
Oh, really? I'll pass on the message.
Feeling a little like an Arabian night out there? Well, not really. Call us back after the break with a look at your long-range forecast. Stay with us. We'll be right back. It's kind of hot in the newsroom right now with all the ladies screaming for Mr. Masood out there. Colette, before the break, we had the young Toronto kid playing Aladdin in the new movie, and I really hope that he was ribbing Will Smith on the set as they go around the world and talk about this film about us knocking his Sixers out of the playoffs.
Yeah, I love it. That'd be a good one, eh?
Yes, it would.
Yeah, we got through that round, and here we are. Yeah, hoping for great things tonight. Great things today in terms of what we saw with our temperatures, right? We're seeing all that warmth move in here. It took a little while. I know this morning the cloud deck was in there and the winds wouldn't shift direction, but once they did, boy, that temperature surged. So unofficially, our high today, 26.1, finally way above an average high for this time of year, and we were closer in terms of the overnight low. This is where the temperatures are sitting at the moment, so it's still really quite comfortable out there. There's a tiny bit of humidity, so maybe add a degree or two for the humidex. It's just nice that we can be even saying that word. And the sustained winds, that's something else. We had that special weather statement earlier because the wind's so gusty. The sustained winds aren't that bad, still coming in more from a kind of just turning westerly direction. You see that more with the gusts, though. Now, the gusts are still pretty strong, so some of them certainly over 60 kilometers an hour and at times approaching 70. Those will continue to ease over the next couple of hours. Also, we're losing what we had in terms of any precipitation that was along that cold front. That's moved off towards the east, and so we get into some quieter conditions in terms of no active weather, which is nice. And we may have a little bit of extra cloud cover into tomorrow morning, but mostly we're going to see sunshine through the day on Friday. Now, those winds play into Friday's forecast as well. They'll be more from the northwest, and because of that, a little bit cooler than what we experienced today. Saturday, I want to show you this. So in the morning, that chance for seeing some rain, also maybe a few thunderstorms. Then we get into this dry slot into the afternoon, but with some sunshine, that's going to add to the volatility. So into the later afternoon, early evening Saturday, a return of wet conditions, including some isolated thunderstorms in there. Overnight tonight, these are your lows, again, with quiet conditions there and sitting in the double digits. Tomorrow afternoon, just a little more temperate than today. And a quick look at the 5-day forecast. So it's not an all-day event on Saturday, not to get too concerned about it. Just know it's coming back later in the day. And then Sunday, Dwight, really looking like quite a nice day. Nice temperatures and dry conditions as well.
We have the CBC Music Fest on Saturday. I'll be down there at Echo Beach. I hope it clears up a little more than that.
Yeah, that is looking a little bit tricky. So at least it's a long event and a covered stage.
Yes, it is. Thanks, Colette.
Yeah.
A wildfire near High Level, Alberta refuses to succumb to firefighters' efforts, but crews are managing some small victories. They've been successful with several controlled burns aimed at robbing the wildfire of fresh fuel. Still, conditions remain hot and dry, and a change in wind direction could put the town back in danger. Residents left High River 4 days ago, and firefighters estimate it will be at least 5 days before the community gets a break from the fire. Many residents in Missouri woke up in the middle of the night to loud sirens and several powerful tornadoes that ripped through the region. And daybreak showed widespread destruction, with roofs and walls ripped off from many homes. Stephen D'Souza with more on this storm system over the state that could spell more trouble.
Buildings shattered and shredded by nature's brute force. Rooftops disintegrated, leaving apartments open and exposed. The massive tornado that hit Missouri's state capital cut a path about 5 kilometers long and almost 2 kilometers wide.
The windows in the apartment were rattling, and I just thought we were all gonna die.
The tornado hit last night just before midnight. The accompanying lightning gave onlookers brief glimpses of the destructive force about to lay waste to their town.
Very, very thankful that it happened at night when most people were likely, at home and they heard the outdoor warning sirens.
Earlier in the day and farther south, another of the nearly 24 tornadoes to hit the region. 3 people were killed near Golden City, Missouri. One estimate suggests that tornado had an 80-kilometer-long path and was on the ground for an hour and 20 minutes. Satellite imagery shows the wide swath the storms cast across Missouri, part of a system that for several days had already pounded the Midwest with torrential rains and twisters. In Jefferson City, officials were going door to door in damaged areas. It appears that there were about 24 injuries, and in the capital at least, no one was killed. Schools were closed today, and non-essential state workers were told to stay home. In the town of Carl Junction, Missouri, they began to clean up. The tornado hit on the 8th anniversary of another deadly twister. That one hit nearby Joplin and killed more than 160 people in 2011. This week, the same weather system has already seen flooding that's left parts of Texas and Oklahoma underwater. Back in Jefferson City, the tornado may have passed, but the weather damage may not be over. Flooding could hit the city by tomorrow, as the region continues to brace for more severe weather. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
And as we head to break, here's a look at where the markets closed today. Stay with us. We will be right back.
This market update is brought to you by SSQ Insurance, reminding you that stronger communities make every person stronger.
India's Narendra Modi has won a historic landslide victory in the country's general election. It's been more than 5 decades since an Indian prime minister has returned to power with such a large mandate. Nala Ayed is in New Delhi for us tonight.
The sound of victory. For the believers, it wasn't beyond expectations, but once confirmed, it was certainly beyond imagination. Because many here were convinced they would have a majority, but they couldn't have guessed its magnitude.
The message is quite clear that India is rising, and they need to think from a different point of perspective to the Indians.
It isn't often in India's fractious politics that one party, one prime minister wins back-to-back outright majorities. Narendra Modi, showered with adulation at party headquarters, is back both with more popular vote and more seats. If anyone has won, it's the people of India, he says, so all of us dedicate this win to the public. Week after week, as voters in the hundreds of millions went to the polls in 7 phases, Modi relentlessly stayed front and center with a Hindu nationalist and anti-elite message that also focused on his roots as a tea seller's son and his self-appointed role as the nation's protector.
Now again, he's doing for his country. And he's the best Prime Minister of India.
His win cements the upending of traditional politics here, once dominated by the Congress Party, now further weakened as an opposition.
New Prime Minister has been elected, and today is the day to wish him all the best, and to hopefully he will look after the interest of this country.
Detractors, though, worry about Modi's divisive, polarizing influence, his alienation of minorities, and a shrinking space for opposing views.
I mean, fear is not a good thing in democracy. I mean, there was a time one could say what one wanted in India. You could stand on the road and, abuse anybody. And it's the job of the government to listen.
Modi promised to unify his people. Just as daunting, the millions of young people without jobs. the millions more living in poverty. A powerful mandate, yes, but the expectations are immense. Nala Ayed, CBC News, New Delhi.
Big news for soccer fans. The federal government is giving $4.3 million to help Canada prepare for the 2026 World Cup.
Soccer has the power to transform not only the lives of Canadians, but also our communities from coast to coast to coast. It's a sport that we find in almost every Canadian community, and it builds friendships that last a lifetime.
The money will be going to the Canadian Soccer Association to be used now through 2020. Canada, the U.S., and Mexico won the bid to serve as co-hosts for the 2026 tournament. As of right now, Canada and Mexico will host 10 games each, with the U.S. hosting 60. We turn to basketball now. It's game night for our Raptors. Game 5 in Milwaukee is just a few hours away. Fans already packing Jurassic Park to cheer them on, as you can see. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Ada. This is Cameron, and we are the owners of Feasto Dumpling Food Truck.
We operate as a mobile kitchen in Toronto. We go to festivals, we do lunchtime downtown on the streets of Toronto.
So we serve dumplings, that's what we do. Our OG pork dumpling is a classic. It's been on the menu since the beginning. It's my family recipe, it's from my mom, and it's the best thing on the menu, in my opinion. We have a chili sesame wonton, which is a little spicy, it's a little different, it's very traditional, and it's new on the menu, and it's gaining popularity.
Ready to find me that food truck.
They need to bring it down here to
right
CBC.
in front of the CBC building. You're wearing your Raptors red. It has been good luck for us so far. Jurassic Park is filled with people right now, and you said the weather out there tonight won't be bad for them.
Looking awesome. Yep,
all right.
Yep, just a little breezy, that's all.
Raps are in Milwaukee. We're here cheering them on. We're off to the game very shortly. Are you going to the game tonight?
No.
Are you not going
to the game?
Oh, sorry, it's in Milwaukee. Sorry, she goes to every game. You're not going to jump on a plane and fly to Milwaukee to watch the game tonight?
Believe me, I wish I was there.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
you don't have it like that? You can't jump on Drake's jet? Okay, ready? Only got 5 seconds. Go, Rats, go!